What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome. Well, it's not quite Tuesday night. We're not quite live, but you are still watching and or listening for the holidays. It's Dynasty Points, a little bit different this year. The show just happens to fall on a couple of days this year that we're not going to be able to be live, but there's one thing I couldn't do without, and it's talking with my favorite people about football and fantasy football, especially for the holidays. Lots of people are traveling, so I hope you're tuning in and enjoying. Let us know where you're watching from. If you're watching over on YouTube, leave a comment. Are you at your in-laws? Are you suffering through lineup decisions while the house is going absolutely ballistic before Christmas? Let us know. We're also going to talk about some holiday happenings. We're going to talk about our favorite and least favorite holiday traditions, some things we do and don't like about the holidays. We're definitely talking about some bad beats, and I hope you're ready, because I suffered what can only be described as the most horrendous set of bad beats from the Sunday night football game that I could remember since I've started playing fantasy football. This was the most emotional roller coaster tied to 3 separate leagues at once. All of these outcomes could have been avoided. We're going to talk about that. Ryan, Heath, Lucas Gilbert joining me. No Jakob this week with family things. We're recording this Monday afternoon, so you're going to be watching this here on the Tuesday. Hopefully you get what you need from your Monday night football game. All of that being said, we are also going to talk about a couple of players, probably a little more brief than what you'd come to expect from us, especially with no chat, sending us off in multiple directions. You know, we're going to get through it, though, and it's going to be great. We're going to have a wonderful time. Couple of players we're talking about. You're going to want to sit tight for that. I want to start with bad beats. Because I feel like a lot of the times fantasy football analysts, quote, experts, which we are not and will never claim to be, don't like to talk about their beats as much. They want to talk about the way I knew this guy was going to play well. You know what? I put him out there and I knew that this was the Deebo Samuel game that he hasn't had all year. It was happening this week. I knew it. I put him in every lineup, and I'm in 27 finals out of 27 leagues. I have 100% win rate because I'm the GOAT. We're not going to do that. We have bad beats here. We're just people. Ryan, let's talk about your bad beats. I feel like mine's going to take the longest. So let's talk about your bad beats from this past Sunday.
Yeah, so kind of all my bad beats are ultimately Ezekiel Elliott's fault, but the way we get there, I think, is entertaining. So I'm going to back us up a little bit. So I'm in the semifinals of this insane 2 tight end, super double tight end premium league with Jakob Gibbs from CBS and some other people around the industry. I have a pretty good team, but I've been kind of cobbling together the RB2 position since J.K. Dobbins went down, right? He was kind of my guy the whole year, and I'd been starting like Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, like these types of players, right? In the RB2 spot for the last handful of weeks. So I, all week, am trying to get a spot starter at the position. Well, first I'm trying to spend big for like a Jahmyr Gibbs or a similar caliber player, because as we've talked about, if you're going to spend big, really affect the probability of your win chances if you can. Failing that, was trying to send like a late second for Isaac Guerendo before the injury. Thank God that didn't end up coming back to bite me. It was a few hours away from that potentially. And ultimately I end up trading for Rico Dowdle. But here's kind of where it gets really frustrating, because on Thursday, I am the worst person when it comes to setting lineups and remembering to set lineups, especially for Thursday night football. My biggest article published of the week is Friday morning. I'm always very locked in working on Thursday. It's usually 8 o'clock, and I'm like, oh my God, I had to set my lineups. I had left Justice Hill in at RB2 with Gus Edwards on the bench on Thursday night. I realized this when Edwards scored his first touchdown, that he was not in my lineup and was sitting on my bench. Edwards ultimately drops over 20 fantasy points. And I'm just sitting there going into Friday with Justice Hill. And I'm like, oh my God, like I have to make this trade now. I'm on tilt. I do the trade. I get Dowdle for the late second, plug him in. And then Ezekiel Elliott comes in at the goal line and plunges in and ensures that Dowdle scores like whatever it was, 8 or 9 fantasy points. And now, because of Ezekiel Elliott, I am in a position where I need 13 points from Jordan Love in this league. And in another league, the Scott Barrett, Danny Kelly Invitational, which Thomas and Jakob are also in, I need fewer than 50 points scored by Jordan Love, Josh Jacobs, and MVS. So Josh Jacobs can absolutely end me tonight. And I'm very terrified because he's done that every single week for the last 8 weeks. And yeah, I am going to be pretty upset, I think, at circa 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Monday night. But maybe you'll find out, and you'll know how badly I'm tilting by the time this goes up.
More surprised that you need to worry about your running back 2 spot in a 2 tight end league and not frantically constantly trying to fill your tight end spots. I think that's really impressive. I think it means you did something right. I also just want to point out it's really just Josh Jacobs coming for your ass for hearing us talk so much shit about him all off season. He's like, I get the chance to end that nerd season. I'm ending it. That's just how it's going to be. I traded for him. I traded for him this week. I needed him. I felt. Turns out didn't need him. We can talk about that. Lucas, let's talk about your bad beats.
I think the worst one is just getting absolutely wrecked by a stack 2 weeks in a row. Last week in one of my leagues in which I'm going up against people I work with who I've been accusing for years now are too scared of me to let me into their league. Just got my season ended by Amon-Ra St. Brown and Devontae Adams. And it didn't help that Brock Purdy scored me, I think, 3 points in that game. So it was a very rough way to go out in that one, having to eat a lot of crow right now. But, it is what it is. And then this week getting wrecked again by Justin Jefferson and James Cook, just coming in like a wrecking ball, killing everything while I'm watching Brian Thomas score me. I think he has 1.5 fantasy points. So I'm feeling really great about that. Not to mention, oh my goodness, Trey McBride doing something that he hasn't done all year, making me very sad. So I'm sitting here wanting Tucker Kraft to score 50 fantasy points tonight, just so I can have any sort of shot in one league, so I can finish in 5th place. And then I need Jaden Reed to score me 50 points in another league. I'm not really liking my chances. Ryan, I think that would be really good for Love if that happens. So who knows? We can be working together on that. But I also know that you need Love not to go completely off tonight with the other players that y'all have to go up against. So
I'd rather be in your spot because, it's like,
because you're
not upset.
Like,
you're not upset if you don't get 50 fantasy points from Jaden Reed. It is extremely possible that I advance both these teams. I'd say it's about 50-50 win probability in each matchup. But I just know that I'm going to get like middled in horrific fashion by Josh Jacobs. Like, yeah, it's just but it's just enough where I know there's a chance and I am invested. And tune into my Twitter tonight, I guess, if you want.
Plus, right now, I just know that the Broncos are going to Bronco at this point. After losing to the Chargers, I see the Bengals there, and I'm terrified.
Yeah, I think the Bengals might make the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be a great end to the season, but I still believe kind of. And then my Tennessee Vols, who I typically have, something up. I think it's over this shoulder in my normal area of Peyton Manning, the GOAT. They took away all of my hope that I have anymore. I don't feel things really after that first quarter, especially then whenever I had just a little bit left in the second. I was like, oh, they're fighting. Things can change just to get even more destroyed the second half. So it's fine. If I drank, I'd probably still be drunk at this point from the weekend I've been having. But it is what it is. And speaking of in-laws, that is where I am this week. 11-hour drive yesterday, so I'm having a fantastic weekend going into Monday. So
just a fun time.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about fun times. Before I lose my mind into this microphone and lose every subscriber that we have, I just want to point out that Jacob and I will be facing off against one another in the Foot Clan League. That was really like the third league any of us ever joined in Dynasty ever. Still going strong. The last time Jacob and I met, someone died on the field in the finals that year. And we are both praying that we do not see a repeat of this scenario. The last time we faced off in the finals, something tragic happened. And I don't know, but if it happens again, we may have to ban us from facing off in this league together in the finals forever. It just might happen.
Wait, what's like the black magic voodoo there if I am facing you and Jacob in the Scott Barrett Invitational Finals next week? Am I gonna go die on the field? No. Like, I don't know how that.
No,
I don't like the idea of that transferring over to a matchup I'm involved in. You didn't tell me this before I joined this league with you, Thomas.
I think it's just this one, because Jacob and I have played each other in other finals. We were in the home league finals last year. Him and I usually end up in at least one finals against each other every single year, just combined with all the leagues that we're in together. This one specifically is the only one where someone had died. And considering how cursed he is in this league, this is the league that for 5 straight years he's made the finals, and he has lost every single one of them. He is currently the Buffalo Bills. Like, he cannot win in the finals in this league. And the last time he was here, someone died. Like, the NFL is trying everything they can to stop Jacob from winning a finals in this league. And I'm just hoping I'm the beneficiary once again of his inability and his curse. But let's talk about curses. Let's talk about horrendously tragic bad beats. It's the home league. The league that we care about more than anything else on this planet. No other league matters to this level. Everyone here is from Winnipeg. We get together every year in person to do the rookie draft. We did the entire draft live when this kicked off. It has been the only league that has a punishment. And boy, punishment is rough. Rough for the person that has to partake. I have never partaken. I went in thinking Njoku was not going to play. So I played Pat Freiermuth at tight end, thinking he get an end zone shot. Nope. Arthur Smith's homie got the touchdown down at the goal line. So with 4 points, I was like, okay, I can recover from this. This is no problem. So Njoku, he sits on my bench. Turns out I needed 20 points from McMillan to advance once again to the home league finals. I had no hope of this happening. None. I just didn't want it to be within 10. Well, the end of the half, McMillan scores and ends up with 10, I think it was like 10.15 fantasy points. So now my heart is broken. Now I have to win. I didn't want it to be within 10. Now I'm within 10. Now this is on me with the Njoku thing. So now just don't let me get close. And what happens? Deep ball, full send, YOLO from Baker Mayfield into the end zone. That he has in his hands. And it is ripped away like my chances at the finals, ripped from my chest. Right here, just taken from me. Because McMillan couldn't get the 50-50 ball call. That was it. That was the 10-point play. That was a 50-yard, 1 point for the reception, 6 yards for the touchdown. I win the game. And then, let's not forget, okay? McMillan has a chance at the end of the game. Driving the field. Second last drive. It's a McMillan drive. Peppered. I'm thinking, okay, we got an opportunity. He's getting the targets. No Shepard. Evans dropping the ball. He needs one more drive, and I don't know if he can get it. CeeDee Lamb catches the football. We're going to talk about him. We're talking about CeeDee Lamb after this. But guess what? He goes down. The Bucks get the ball back. Oh my God. McMillan time. He's for sure going to be able to get me 3 fantasy points on this drive. He did not, because Baker Mayfield did Baker things, and the Bucks did Bucks things and had not Bucky Irving on the field, which we'll also talk about. Rachaad White fumbles the ball away in the most hilarious fashion possible. I lose 150-98 to 147-38 in a game that I shouldn't even have had a chance, and everything lined up. Home league taken from me. Taken from me. Another opportunity for the finals in back-to-back years. As a one-time champion of that league. It would have been Jakob and I one more time. Taken from me. You guys want to talk about CeeDee Lamb? Let's talk about CeeDee Lamb for a minute. Because in a league where I am the back-to-back champion, going for the three-peat. Now, I have lost Chris Godwin. I have lost Dak Prescott. I am managing the shit out of this team. Coach speeches at halftime. Okay, we're installing the game plan. I'm out there like at MCDC. All right, I'm doing the up downs with the players. Okay, I'm in the practice. I'm hitting the bags. I'm really installing a good culture for this championship winning squad. All I need is CeeDee Lamb for like 18. Okay, I think it was 18. Ryan, can you double check how many points did CeeDee Lamb score here in this last game?
I think
he scored 17 and a half. He had 17 and a half PPR points. Okay, so I needed roughly 19 and a half points. Okay, I'm not great with math, and I'm really amped up right now. So what am I thinking? Easy win. He's killing them the whole game. I'm talking shit in the chat. I'm talking about the three-peat. I'm ready to go. Okay, we're Kobe Bryanting a three-peat. MJ, right? We are hitting peak level fantasy stardom with this league. Turns out, CeeDee Lamb catches a ball and goes down on the half-inch line. Half-inch line hurts a shoulder. You can see it. You can see he's shaking his head no. He's taking himself off the field. He's talking to the dot. Half-inch line, then the Zeke touchdown. This is where this is the crossover, right? This is the Marvel Cinematic Universe crossover for fantasy football bad beats with Ryan and I.
I had CD and Dowdle on that team, by the way. So either way would have been cool with me, but
so I'm losing it.
Not working.
I'm freaking out. All right. Aaron, my wife, she's like, no, he scored. I was like, he's down. I knew it immediately. You just know, like everyone else is celebrating. It shows up on Sleeper as a touchdown. I was like, it hit. I'm pacing now. I'm losing my mind. But I'm thinking he's got all half. He can catch like 2 passes, 3 passes at half. Guess what? Doesn't play the third quarter. And I can feel it in my bones. He's not coming back out. Now I'm tilted. I'm losing it. But he comes back out in the fourth quarter. Gets a pass thrown to him. Pass interference. That catch, by the way, would have won me the game. That would have been it. Just needed him to catch that football. And then on the last drive that the Cowboys had, so I guess second last, technically, if you count the kneel downs, he catches one ball And all he has to do is just run a little bit and get the first down. If he makes that a 10-yard catch, a little bit more than a 10-yard catch, we win the game. I lose this game 178-74 to 176-26. The touchdown alone would have put me 1 point ahead to win the game. Now, you might be thinking, Tom, there's no possible way there is a third bad beat from the same Sunday Night Football game. Nah. We have one more. Coming back, I'm down big time to one of the people who I talk about in this podcast as being the best fantasy player I've ever played against. It's DeBaradox. He and I are going toe-to-toe. It's me versus the Mormon Missile. We are just absolutely butting heads all year in this league. And what do I need? Mike Evans and Bucky Irving. There's no possible way these guys don't score like 35 fantasy points. All right, this is the Cowboys. Mike Evans is chasing the record. A couple of drops and horrific throws by Baker Mayfield. Mike Evans, he's not going to get there. But guess what? We need 9 points, 11 points in the second half after Bucky carried the Bucks on his back. My guy, Bucky, highest on the show all year on Bucky. This is my dude. He's carrying me to the finals. Doesn't touch the ball in the last 9 minutes of the game because it's Rachaad White's our 2-minute drill guy, and the clock just didn't work out that way. Mike Evans drops a deep ball. Got absolutely rocked. Like, totally not his fault. Like, that was an insane hit. Shout out the safety, too. Clean hit. Unbelievable play. I lose this game 184-72 to 180-82. 3 of the worst bad beats I've ever experienced in this game stemmed from the same Sunday Night Football game. I'm not emotionally okay. I'm not okay. That was one of the most tragic endings. And after all this, I'm thinking, we got another drive. Again, imagine 2 separate leagues. You're thinking the Bucks have the ball back. This drive alone could take me to the finals in 2 leagues. I am on edge, standing up, losing my mind. First play, and Rachaad White fumbled the ball. I'm sorry, but Bucky takes that pass for 20 yards. Like, no one near him. Bucky's more elusive. He catches that ball, and he does not fumble. He makes the first guy miss because Rachaad White can't make anybody miss. I can't handle it. I'm not okay. 3 of the worst bad beats I've ever experienced. So for every fantasy individual in the space, let's not forget to talk about the bad ones, not just the good ones. And speaking of bad beats, speaking of the Scott Barrett, Danny Kelly Invitational, Jakob and I have been in first almost the entire year and have not made a single waiver claim, mostly because we do not know how, because it is on MFL, and neither of us want to sign in to that website.
That was the other half of the reason I was hoping we meet in the finals, because I have also not made a waiver claim in that league the entire year for the exact same reason. So it would be pretty funny if we both made it.
We have not had a second quarterback for most of this year. We've been reliant on Will Levis. Like, yeah. And hey, 17.5 points per game for like a 4 or 5 game stretch was clutch this year. Clutch for us. We have lost Chris Godwin. We have lost Rashee Rice. And yet, we survived. We persevered. We needed Mike Evans versus Baker Mayfield. We thought there's no way Baker goes off without Mike. Well, not so great showing from Mike Evans. Now, granted, Baker didn't go off. He did a lot better than he should have. And now we're a half a point up on our opponent, and we have Juwan Johnson versus Romeo Doubs. We are about to experience another heartbreaking loss for a team that has no business losing simply because we got James cooked. I believe we have Taylor as well. Like we had the game from a running back, and it doesn't mean anything. Like I can't tell you how much I hate this game sometimes. And as Lucas has typed in to the private chat, when I say check in on your loved ones, even if you don't know that they need it, stole the words right from my mouth, Lucas. Like that is exactly what this conversation I needed to talk about. This is my therapeutic session today. This isn't like a ha ha he funny type show. We're not cracking jokes. All right. I'm crying on the inside. It's not great. So I'm hoping. I'm praying. I'm praying.
If you or a loved one is fading Romeo Dobbs in your fantasy semifinals, you may be entitled to financial compensation.
I talked so much shit about this guy. Like, I talked so much shit about Romeo Dobbs, and he's going to end my year in that league after dominating all season. I've had to tolerate all the Mets chatter. I've had to tolerate just an obscene amount of time spent on MFL. Let's just not even forget trying to figure out how to draft on MFL. Like, this website is built for DOS. It's not built for 2024. Okay? Terrible. It, like, just awful. We need the Juwan Johnson out of nowhere touchdown this like tonight. So when this releases on Tuesday, just know that I've already been crying in a hole in the ground that I have dug outside with an excavator because the ground is frozen. I needed extra push. Willing to just dive into it. I'm gonna be not well. I'm
really impressed with how calm our group chat has been for the show and preparing for this. Like, Thomas didn't give any of this away as we were talking about what we were going to talk about for this show. So I'm really impressed by that, but it's worth it to hear it all just as you're processing these feelings. So
I've kept it internal. Didn't put it all over Twitter. I didn't.
I was sent some screenshots, but
there were Brian knew some
right.
of it.
You kept it under wraps mostly.
I think I actually would have been in prison. Like I think murder would have been on the table. I had to get it out.
At least the Ravens won.
Yes. Yeah. Suck on that, Herms. Enjoy that. Hold that L. Fun facts about that Ravens game. It's only it's the first time since like 2019 Lamar Jackson has played the Steelers twice in the same season. Because that dude is constantly hurt/sick. This is also the first time he's played them at home since 2020. He always plays them on the road, and he never gets to see their defense twice. And that's what happened when you got to. So pretty cool. Also, I just want to point out for everyone blaming him for the interception that he threw, his first legit pick of the year that didn't hit his receiver's hands. By the way, there's a video of Todd Monken screaming at Bateman from up top for stopping his route. He goes, Bateman, what are you doing? So if the OC is wondering what the hell Bateman is doing, you can imagine Lamar Jackson's surprise when he threw a perfect dime to Minkah Fitzpatrick. Watches him take it right past him. It was a terrible decision, mind you. Like, let's not. But per the data suite, I was looking today, and Lamar Jackson has the lowest turnover-worthy throw rate in the league. That's insane when you consider he's just throwing yeet balls downfield. Number one average per attempt, and then his ADOT is fourth, I believe. Like, it's actually kind of crazy. But that being said, let's take a break. I need a breath. Now that we've gotten that out, I'm sweating. Brian, we're going to talk about what you just dropped here. I think it's an interesting call. Classic decision to pick up the player facing the team you just played for. It's just like a classic narrative. But we're going to take our first break. And when we come back, we are going to dive into some players that we don't know what to do with per se for next year. Sit tight. We might as well talk about it. It's not often it's not going to be breaking news, I guess, by the time this comes out, but the Texans have claimed Diontae Johnson, which I think they needed anybody. They needed a body. And now Diontae Johnson is about to put up 27 fantasy points this week against the Baltimore Ravens. Probably. Interesting decision. I don't mind it. Definitely a place he can get on the field. If anyone's wondering, no, I won't be playing him. But it's an opportunity for him. If they actually put him on the field, if he actually decides he's going to go into the game, he has clearly been a problem everywhere he's gone. Like, it's so clear. Every team just gets rid of him. So as much as fantasy Twitter loves this man, and trust me, I was playing him when he was on Carolina. He was pushing. He was the wide receiver 1 on a lot of my teams in that time. Like, let's be real. Now it's, again, just Adam Thielen, who's unstoppable, apparently. Running the slowest routes imaginable, but always being open is insane. It's me versus, all my hammered uncles on Christmas. Like, I'm somehow separating with no athleticism, but it looks good when it happens. But truly an interesting landing spot. Could end up finding his way back there on a cheap prove-it deal with Diggs and, oh my God, Tank Dell. I'm gutted for Tank Dell. That was horrendous. Speaking of, I put him in one lineup this week. In his versus Dynasty Points Market Report co-host, Andy Buckler, who, by the way, Buck, get absolutely dog-walked. Whooped his ass thoroughly. It's going to be like 244 to 180. So hold that. But Dell helped me get there in that league. He scored the touchdown and died for it. Like, his career could have ended, basically, for that touchdown. And just for that, Tank, I want to say thank you. And I hope your recovery goes well. Shall I win this finals, I will send flowers. Much love to you for that. Also, what was the guy doing? Diving for that ball. Can we stop having teammates take out the knees of their own players this year? I'm over it. Tank Dell actually looked good. He was cooking the Chiefs, absolutely dominating them. Every time he touched the ball, super open. CJ Stroud hitting them perfectly. CJ Stroud actually looked like rookie year Stroud some of that game. And it was mostly when targeting Tank Dell. And then the knee blows up and Tank Dell's season. And then next year, I'm never drafting him again, probably. Like, it's got to be over. They're drafting someone, signing another free agent, doing anything. This is a team that's been motivated to add receivers in the past. Now they're going to be double motivated to add them. And you got big time free agents that are possible. Everyone's putting T. Higgins everywhere, but I mean, if you're Houston, you got to be putting in a phone call, right? Devontae Adams potentially, like, I don't know, dude.
I'll put it this way with Dell. He's a 5'7" or whatever receiver, however small he is. It weighs 170 pounds or whatever it actually is, who is now quote unquote injury prone. And that's not just in terms of how the fantasy community sees him. Is now officially how the NFL is going to see him. So this is going, even if in the best case scenario, I expect nothing from him in 2025. If he makes like a miraculous comeback on the final year of his rookie deal in 2026, this is career altering in terms of what he's going to ever be able to command on the open market. And also in terms of what his dynasty value is ever going to be. So I'm not really interested in buying Tank Dell at as a rebuilder or anything, like, yeah, theoretically you can buy him very cheaply now and maybe get fantasy production in 2026. But I think I'd just rather not touch him and draft him in 2026, like in redraft and in startups, honestly, once everyone has kind of forgotten about him and moved past, because that's what's happening. There will be no, like, we're leaving a candle on for Tank Dell if the Texans bring in somebody else, which they're incredibly likely to do, and obviously have already done with Diontae Johnson. So yeah, I mean, great player, incredibly efficient rookie season. I think he has a lot of talent. He's definitely capable of scoring fantasy points. But it's the odds that he does so at any point in the near future are just so slim that he's kind of close to like a roster clogger, honestly, now in Dynasty is how I would view him.
Yeah, whenever we're talking about storing like insulated value by putting players that are on the IR on your roster, and then waiting until next season for your rebuilding teams, for the teams that you're wanting to lower your max points for as low as possible. Unfortunately, this just isn't the archetype that we're looking at. Yes, sure, players who are coming off of a single ACL injury, fine. But at this point, with the way that looked, and I'm no doctor by any means, but that was just, it was so tough to watch. And for somebody who was legitimately winning people leagues, and for a lot of dynasty teams, wherever you're picking him in late second, early third of your rookie drafts last year, like really changing the outlook of how you're evaluating your team moving forward, thinking you have this diamond in the rough, thinking you have a set wide receiver 2, luxury wide receiver 3 for your team, and maybe potentially moving on from your rebuild onto competing. This just kind of resets all of that. I don't know if I'm moving fully into roster clogger, but I think Ryan's closer to being right than us realistically expecting for Tank Dell to, come back and end up being like a wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 for your teams. It is really tough. And even if you do take him on, like say you're sending out, I don't know, a third round pick, or you have like Nick Chubb on your roster and you're sending out Nick Chubb for him, because I don't know why you would, but let's just say you do that. I don't know if you're really going to be able to get any more value than that whenever you flip him for in 2026, potentially, or inserting him into your roster. Going to try to make a financial thing here, or reference. So Ryan, please correct me if I'm wrong here. But it's like whenever you're just like buying like a government issued bond, it's like, okay, he's going to be worth more in 2026 than he is at this moment because we're all looking at him as a dead asset. But is that really going to meet, the inflation levels of the rest of the market whenever you're ready to like actually get something from him in 2026? I don't really see that as something feasible. I think if you're going to be taking those gambles, you want to be doing them elsewhere.
Yeah, I don't even see Tank Dell as like a safe, low upside, safe return, like T-bill type of guy where you buy a government bond, because he can go to zero. Like you're buying bonds that have like a C rating if you're buying Tank Dell, because yeah, it can be preseason of 2026 and he's not making progress, and oops, his dynasty value is completely dead now. That's a scenario we can find ourselves in. This isn't a player where at the example you gave of like a clean ACL tear or whatever, where we know about how long it's going to take. We know he's going to be on the field again. I don't think we can take that for granted with Tank Dell, frankly. Just because as I said, there's so many other things the Texans can do in that time. And he has to hit the parlay of them not doing that, and also him coming back from the injury and not getting injured again. Like it's just very tough. It's kind of honestly kind of reminds me of how we would have been talking about John Mechie a couple of years ago, or whatever the timeline on that is. Yeah, like was anyone excited to like buy the upcoming spike on John Mechie going into this year? No, like I would think of it fairly similarly.
Yeah, he's toast to me. He's just, I'm not going to make a bet. I don't care how cheap he is, really. He better be a last pick of the draft. I don't know. I'm sorry, but I can't do it.
I would send Nick Chubb for him. That's fine. But yeah,
Sure.
it's a roster clogger.
The guy
for
with a
roster
broken
clogger.
foot now also ending his season for the second year in a row as an aging running back. Yeah, absolutely. I would also send him for that as well. Let's talk about some players that we have no idea what to do with in 2025. And I want to start with Jonathan Taylor. I want to start with Taylor. See, last year, Jonathan Taylor was a 3rd round startup pick from the months of May all the way to the end of August, if I'm not mistaken. I'm sorry. He was a 2nd round startup pick in 2023. 2nd round, RB4 in that time from May 1st, 2023 to August 31st, 2023. 2nd round startup pick. And he's about to have an insane finish to his season. 3 straight matchups where this man can go crazy. However, it's important to note the rest of the season for him. He has only hit 20 fantasy points twice. He has 19 a couple of times. If he doesn't score, you're a sad panda. If he doesn't score from far away, it's way worse. Because Anthony Richardson, they're running the power quarterback that they need to do for him to be successful. Catching passes with Anthony Richardson, forget about it. He averages 1 a game. Not great. So what you have now is a currently 25, going to be 26-year-old running back who has had 2 separate high ankle sprains and has clearly game-breaking ability when he holds onto the football when he crosses the goal line. And he also has absolute bust ability. This sounds like every other running back, but there's no pass catching happening here. And I don't think Anthony Richardson is going anywhere. I think he's the week 1 starter next year. So I don't know, guys. It was ETN a few years ago, right? Where ETN had a couple of good games to start the year. Not a couple, he had quite a few good games to start the year. And then he was absolutely ass for the stretch of games after the bye week. And then in the championship week, he goes nuts in a good matchup. And it boosts his ADP stock to the 4th round, leading me to launch an absolute smear campaign against him for the entire offseason, not just on our channel, but at South Harmon Fantasy Football and multiple other podcasts where they brought me in to be the talk shit about Travis Etienne guy. And it really stems from fantasy managers remember players more fondly if they help you win championships. They're willing to forget the mid-season lull and bad games or poor outputs, whatever. Because he didn't have like awful games, but let's be honest, if he wasn't scoring, it was 12, and then he had 17 because he caught the 1 ball at the goal line. It's actually kind of a nice tiptoe job where he scored 17 and then 2.5 points, 7, 16, 8, and then the 19 coming back from injury against Houston because he scored. He caught 1 pass for 12 yards. Like that's his season. 19, 27, then 15, 10. And then he had the injury as well. They're going to be willing to forgive all of that RB2ism. It's really what he was. It's an RB2. If he goes out, he already nuked versus Tennessee. He's going to nuke the Giants. And then he gets a week 18 matchup against Jacksonville to just go nuclear. These 3 games, I think, are going to be enough to keep his ADP up. And I don't know what to do with it. There's only been a handful of players, and they're usually named once with Jonathan Taylor. Once it's usually Nick Chubb, Derrick Henry, and then insert some other player every once in a while that hits RB1 in points per game and expected fantasy points per game with you don't catch 35 passes in a year. If you do not hit that mark, there's like 3 guys that hit that in a season. 3 to 5. One of them's pretty much done with his career now in Nick Chubb, and the other guy's name is Derrick Henry.
Saquon Barkley's about to do it, but that's kind of the
Barkley
obvious
is
point
about
of
to do it.
comparison.
Yeah.
I mean,
really, he's really not going to catch 35 passes.
He has 37 targets on the season. I don't have his receptions in front of me, but
he's got 31 receptions. He could hit 35.
Pretty close. But yeah, either way.
But he might not.
That's not how he's scoring his fantasy points, regardless.
Right. So like, there's outlier guys every once in a while, right? Taylor was one of those outlier guys in the year he was the RB1. I actually think he caught 35 passes that year. Let me go double check that right now.
I think like with Jonathan Taylor,
he did. He caught 4.
Go ahead. So with Jonathan Taylor and just running backs coming off, like going into age 26 season and beyond, they historically just do not ever regain value. It's always going to be going downhill year after year. Not to mean that they can't have production, but just the way that we view them as a fantasy community, they always go down. There's only 2 running backs who have ever gone up before this season, because I'm sure Saquon Barkley's ADP is going to go up after this just ridiculous year. But before this year, it was Derrick Henry has done it, and Austin Eckler has done it, raising their value after age 26 or after age 25. So we don't have a good track record of it. That being said, I think that the lesson learned that we can take from Saquon Barkley this season is that really talented running backs can still score you points. I think we are coming off of a time where we had a prime buying window before he's going to go on this ridiculous run at the end of the season. Maybe you could have bought him last week after he cost a couple of people some wins in leagues by dropping that ball before he scored, but c'est la vie. So I think, though, if you get a chance to buy him without having to ridiculously overpay, I'm willing to do it, but he's not somebody that I'm saying you must get, even with like what he's going to do. And I'm also not saying you must avoid. I think that he's still a really good player. You want good players on your team. And who knows, his situation could change at any point in time. That quarterback position is not set for the Colts heading into next season. So I think that there's a really good chance that we could potentially flip the script on him, get a player who's superbly talented, more workload, more opportunities, and that's somebody I want on my roster.
Here we go. I found the data. We talked about this on the Dynasty Points market report like 3 weeks ago. I had to go and look for it. In 2021, there were 2 running backs that finishes an RB1 in points per game and expected fantasy points per game with fewer than 35 receptions. In expected fantasy points, it was Dalvin Cook, who had 34. And fantasy points per game was Dalvin Cook with 34 and Nick Chubb with 20. In 2022, it was Derrick Henry with 33, Nick Chubb with 27 in fantasy points per game. In expected, it was Henry again. Jonathan Taylor made that list with 28 receptions, and Dameon Pierce just missed it at 13th. He was 0.3 expected fantasy points per game off of tying Taylor pretty much with 30 receptions. So Dameon Pierce is one of those guys that damn near made the list. In 2023, it was Kyren Williams with 32. Mostert had 25. HN had 27. Taylor had 19. He only barely made the 10 game. This is minimum 10 games. He barely made that threshold. He just barely beat out James Conner and Pacheco by 0.01 and 0.02 respectively. And expected fantasy points per game, it was Kyren Williams at 19.4. Taylor was 15th in 2023 on that same list. And heading into the game in 2024, that he caught the touchdown pass down at the goal line. I mean, Richardson is scoring more inside the 5. I haven't updated this data yet because I wasn't expecting to talk about these data points here on this one. But like AR is scoring the touchdowns inside the 5 and inside the 10. It's AR. You need long 15, 20 play, and it's in his profile. This is what Andy was arguing with me. Not arguing, we were talking about it. Like, yes, it's in his profile, but you're not predicting them. They're not sticky. Yes, it's in his profile, and being a long touchdown scorer is important. Lamar could score from any point in the field on any play. We're not baking it into a prediction. A lot of running backs, if not all running backs, can house a ball. Chris Johnson in his prime could house it on any touch. It's not in a projection. That's not being weighed into his ADP. In my opinion, it shouldn't anyway. So now we're looking at a running back that doesn't catch passes. and needs to score for the most part from like 15 or more, even 10 or more. And it's just not projectable. Ryan?
Yeah, so I want to pull this back to like the Saquon Barkley comparison, the Derrick Henry comparison, because I will say it. I think we do a little bit of a disservice to say running back can't catch passes, has a mobile quarterback, not interested in fantasy. After the year that Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry to a lesser extent have just had, so I do want to engage with this a little bit. The problem is with Jonathan Taylor that for a running back of his archetype to put up that type of season, you kind of have to hit the perfect parlay of team environment and conditions to make it happen. So number one, the running back has to be supremely talented. I think Taylor meets that threshold.
Taylor's unreal.
He's amazing, right? Would not dispute that at all. Barkley and Henry obviously both meet that threshold as well. Would never have argued that even before the season. But the other stuff you need is you need a team that is in position where they're leading constantly, right? Barkley and Henry are this season have been two of the most game script sensitive players in the NFL. In games that their teams are leading big, they score a ton of fantasy points, they get fed a ton of touches, they eventually break off multiple long touchdowns, right? That's kind of the formula for dramatically overperforming your expected fantasy points, which is the goal line touches and the targets that they're not getting as much. To overperform it on just these normal between the 20s carries, yeah, you need to be in that perfect environment where you have incredible run blocking. The Eagles and Ravens offensive lines have performed as top 3 to top 5 units for the entire season. The Colts O-line is not bad, certainly. I feel I get scared talking about the Colts as a team without Jakob on the show. I'm sure he'll take issue with something I say here when he listens to this later. But the Colts are a decent to average offensive line, I would say.
Yeah,
maybe good, but yeah, decent to average. The defense is nowhere near what certainly the Eagles is, or what the Ravens has been at times. And with Henry and the Ravens, a lot of them leading a lot was just Lamar Jackson having the most efficient season of his career and absolutely dunking on teams in the first half. And Henry can just kind of salt away the second halves. That was a lot of his big scores. It wasn't even like the Ravens were shutting teams down and they're grinding it out slowly. It was, Lamar scored 3 touchdowns in the first 20 minutes of the game, and now it's Derrick Henry time, right?
Or it's Derrick Henry houses it on the first play of the game against Buffalo, scores and gets you there, and it's like, all right, well, that's what I needed.
Yeah, exactly. But so yes, is Jonathan Taylor capable of having a season like that over the next 2 to 3 years? He's under contract for 2 more years. Yeah, totally. That's in the range of outcomes. But if we're sitting here and talking about him as a dynasty pick, where if you tell me he has a 2nd round or a 3rd round startup ADP going into this year, I would just rather spend that 2nd or 3rd round startup pick on Saquon Barkley, which I think is also, I imagine Barkley will go higher than Taylor in startups, but I don't think it's going to be that big of a difference. If I'm betting on that profile, on that set of circumstances, I'd rather bet on the one that I know just happened, right? We know the Eagles just had one of the best offensive lines, one of the best defenses in the league, and Barkley literally did it for the entire season. So why would it's just so much different to me. There's a chasm in terms of likelihood of another season like that happening between a Barkley and a Taylor, like enough that and again, not that I love betting on this archetype or love drafting older running backs early in startups or anything like that. But if that's the path you want to take, I think you clearly just do it with Barkley and move up to where you need to in the startup to do it with him rather than with Jonathan Taylor, where, there's just so much uncertainty around this team and how they're going to be building it going into next year that we're not going to know. It's just, I will probably have no Jonathan Taylor in startups at all next year if I had to guess.
I just feel like it's important to point out. You'd be like, well, in 2023, he was drafted in the second round. Yeah, why would we worry about the 2023 startup? Well, I'll tell you why. He had a down year. He's the RB33. He got hurt. This is the ankle sprain. Anthony Richardson's rookie year turned into Gardner Minshew. He caught some passes down the stretch. We're thinking things are great. He had some insulation. He didn't fall that far. He was drafted as the RB5 at the beginning of the third round, towards the middle of the third round, drafted ahead of, again, previously mentioned Travis Etienne. Talk about glowing lights for a player. Etienne gained ADP. To prove my point, Etienne went. He lost. No, he did gain ADP. We went as the RB6 in the end of the third round instead of the fourth round, simply because of the end of the year that he had. So that completely hits on the point that I made at the beginning of the show. And then Barkley went as RB7 at the end of the third round between May 1st and August 31st of 2024. Taylor is about to get the same bump at the end of the year as Etienne did. And now there's kind of the running back renaissance, if you would. It's probably going to, I don't know about up his ADP, but keep his ADP where he's at. Sure. You got to expect Christian McCaffrey. He's out. Breece Hall. He's going to fall in ADP. 100% he's going to fall. So I think Taylor could be up in the second round. I think Barkley's locked in to be in the second round. Achan's going to be in the second round. He was a fourth round ADP from May 1st to August 31st in 2024, according to the Dynasty Data Lab. I mean, I don't know what to do with him. I think I'm going to end up passing on him. But
on Achan?
No, on Taylor.
Oh, sorry. Last name you said. You gotta defend the honor of my boy there. I think he's the redraft 101 next year.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. But when I say I don't know what to do with them, we laid out every, I think, range of outcome for Jonathan Taylor. And we went a little deeper than I thought we were even going to get into. But that's the case. We know what he is. We've seen what he is. We've seen what he is in this offense. So I think he's going to move up. I don't totally know what to do with him. He's going to go berserk. But we've seen this before now. Even the last from 2023 into 2024. Now we're going to see it again at the 2024 and into 2025. That being said, let's hit a quick break. We're going to speed run a couple of players, and we're going to play a little game called Higher or Lower that we like to hit at the end of every year. Not as big of a deep dive, obviously, because we want to keep this pretty short for people. And then I just want to talk about some holiday stuff before we get out of here, so sit tight. All right, gentlemen, let's talk about higher or lower on a couple of players that we kind of talked about in season quite a bit. Obviously, my DMs are nonstop about Jaxon, Smith-Njigba, JSN having a very good year and a very down year for wide receivers. You can at me, that's factual. But to say the least, the breakout has been interesting to see. And you can see why. DK pulling 3 players at a time just when Gino looks at him for some reason. It's like teams are unaware that JSN is cooking them and they're just continuously leaving him and still thinking that DK is like the big problem. He's not. But let's talk about higher or lower than wide receiver 8 off the draft board. You're wondering where wide receiver 8 went last year. It was A.J. Brown at the end of the second round. You had Garrett Wilson, Puka, Marvin, Amon-Ra, Chase, Lamb, and Jefferson ahead of him. Higher or lower on JSN than wide receiver 8 next year in 2025?
I I know I would be lower than wide receiver 8, but in terms of where will he actually get drafted, I think there's 7 guys that are very locked in to go ahead of him. So like Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Puka, Lamb, Neighbors, Nico, Amon-Ra, I would say are all locks. I think Brian Thomas Jr. will go ahead of him. So yeah, that's it. That's 8 right there. I would say lower than wide receiver 8 is where I'll be going.
Okay, Lucas.
I mean, same. I don't know if there's really a path for him to be wide receiver 8 start of the season. Just with how many good wide receivers there are, more wide receivers that fit that traditional outside role that fantasy managers just absolutely love. And then also, with the year that so many of these rookies have had, I think that's, going to solidify them. He doesn't make those sort of highlight worthy type plays all the time to even drum up his stock even more just from being able to watch those replays during the off season. So I don't really see him sneaking that high up. I think that he's probably going to be between wide receiver 10 and wide receiver 12, and I don't know. I think if I have to draft him at that point, I'm going to be punting on him in a lot of my startups.
Okay, I think all that's fair. I'm going to call it over. Over, if not at wide receiver 8. I think Garrett Wilson's out of the top 8 in ADP next year with the season he's had, which is a shame. Thanks, Aaron Rodgers. AJ Brown, I think, is going to fall out. You got Tyreek Hill at 9. Yes, Neighbors is going to be up, but Marvin could fall out of the top 10. I think he should fall out of the top 10 when you look at BTJ, who's going to be in the top 10, and Neighbors. I think 8 is probably his sweet spot. I was the one on the pod that said he'll finish in the top 12. I think he's going to finish above that, especially with a couple weeks here left to go. He's going to I believe he's going to set the Seahawks receptions record. I think he'll be a little bit overdrafted, but I think 8 and then maybe 9 is probably right where he's going to be.
I could buy 9. I can't buy him going over any of the names I listed, and I listed 8 names.
Okay. So yeah, 8, 9.
9 I could see.
Okay.
I still would not take him at 9, but yeah.
Okay. Let's talk about another wide receiver real quick here. He's averaged 16 points per game with Russell Wilson. It feels like Russell Wilson is going to be the quarterback on the Steelers next year. George Pickens in the Fantasy Points Dynasty Rankings chat. He is a hot topic. I traded him away for Josh Jacobs in this playoff run that I am on. I need Josh Jacobs tonight. I'll need Josh Jacobs next week. And Pickens and a potential crash out is not something that I want to bet on personally. I'm a little lower on him. That's why I want to talk about him. Scott Barrett loves him. Theo Greminger loves him. Jacob Sanderson loved him. I'd love to hear how you guys feel about him. He's a bit hit or miss to me. Over or under wide receiver 14 for George Pickens heading into 2025. You might wonder why 14 is important. Well, that's where Brandon Ayuk was going last year. And immediately after him were guys like Rome, Nico, Devontae, Pittman Jr., DJ Moore, Zay Fly, Metcalf, Tank Dell. There's a pathway for him to jump a considerable amount of wide receivers to get there. Over or under wide receiver 14 for George Pickens?
So I kind of see him at wide receiver 15 right now, which makes me a little bit nervous. So I'm going to say the over, or he might even be exactly wide receiver 14. But that's not really somebody I want to be paying for a name brand JMO at this point. That's how I look at him so much of the time. I think we've seen the ceiling of George Pickens, and it's a fun ceiling, but that's not really something I want to be paying wide receiver at 14 for. And honestly, I think that Ladd McConkey might even be ranked higher than him going into next season. I think that might be the name that will push him down past wide receiver 14. But right now, I'm going to say over, but I don't feel good about it.
Okay. Ryan?
Yeah, I'd rather have Ladd. Good example. I'm going to go under. I think he'll be drafted lower than 14 going into next year. And the reason for that is I think there's a decent chance the Steelers bring someone in free agency. And in this offensive environment, incredibly run heavy with Arthur Smith, that hurts Pickens a lot more than someone like Alad McConkey getting a second wide receiver, just in terms of how he's going to project and how he's going to score fantasy points in 2025. I mean, I'm with the Scott Barretts and the Jacobs on Pickens as a player at this point. I've bent the knee. I've come around. Yeah, he's awesome. All of his peripheral numbers actually look good now, too, for kind of the first time in his career. Top 12 in yards per out run. He's gotten incredibly unlucky in terms of touchdown scoring this year. So I do think he's capable of having like a big season, but I'd be more interested in buying after free agency, I think, just because then I will not feel like there's this big downside risk to him in the short term that I think is not really priced in with how people are currently viewing him.
I like that. I'm going to go under as well. I think he's going to go pretty low, not pretty low, but much lower. Nico's going to move up, right? Addison's having a banger year. We talked about JSN, Ladd, and Brian Thomas Jr. all going to go up. Xavier Worthy's probably going to see an uptick in ADP just off of a couple of games, which Buck and I are going to talk about when we record on Thursday, because I've had the charting team and Brett Whitefield give me some notes on some of this Xavier Worthy stuff, and I found it very interesting. Some stuff to look for with that. But I think T. Higgins is going to move way up. Higgins and Pickens went back to back. I would say T. Higgins finishes around 14, especially if he gets the bag somewhere that's very interesting, like a New England. I think he'll get a boost as well. Pickens is going to have a ways to go. These games hurt him. But I mean, like I said, Chris Olave, Waddle, Hill, a lot of receivers are going to move out of the top 12. There's a pathway for Pickens, but it's going to be tight. So I'm mostly inclined to agree with you guys. And then lastly, the last player I wanted to talk about is Jameson Williams. Hot button topic on this podcast. He's been trashed here for years. I said it this towards the beginning of the year. Well, I said when you're trading your first overall pick, you're going to kind of want a 14 and a half point per game, right? A high-end wide receiver 3 and a wide receiver 2. Guess what? Hovering right around where he is this year, almost at 1,000 yards, which doesn't totally mean a lot for fantasy, but it means a lot for a perception of a wide receiver. We don't know where the OC is going to go. We don't know if he's staying or not. They're creating some of the most insane plays we've ever seen. He's basically going to be given the key to a city, given the GM role anywhere he goes pretty much, and said, save us. So let's talk about Jameson Williams, who last year, this was a time to buy. He went as wide receiver 50 last year. That was the time to buy, like we talked about. Over or under, though, wide receiver 28 next season. And you might wonder why wide receiver 28 is so specific. That is where Brian Thomas Jr. went last year. I'm not picking these for no reason. Between May 1st and August 31st, so from the draft to the start of the year in the heavy startup season, Rashee Rice was wide receiver 32, keep in mind. Do we think Jameson Williams takes this semi-breakout season, if you would, that has included injury and suspension, because he can't get out of his own goddamn way? Wide receiver 28, higher or lower? I'll go to Ryan.
This one's tough because
it's a hard line.
I think a lot of it hinges on how we feel about whoever the new OC is, assuming there is a new OC. If Ben Johnson stays, I think he very will clearly go higher than that, just because he's a young and explosive player in what we know is a good offense, and that tends to be something people will draft in Dynasty. I might go lower, though. I would not be overly surprised if kind of the community perception around the Lions takes like a bit of a 180 when Johnson leaves. It's really hard to know these things and hard to like project that out because we just have so little information. I will say if he's going below the wide receiver 28, I would be decently interested in drafting him. He's kind of the perfect guy to have in your flex where he will win you some weeks. He will, like he just did, he will score 20 fantasy points. He will have some weeks, at least in this version of the offense, where they don't scheme up enough looks or targets for him, and he has like 4 fantasy points. But yeah, that's kind of the perfect guy to have in your flex in like a start 10 dynasty league. The value insulation is probably decent, again, because he's young. But I mean, I don't know. Like Sam Laporta has been coming on a lot the last few weeks. I think he's been playing through an injury for a good part of the season. So that should maybe make you think twice about JMO's consistent role in the offense. But yeah, I'm going to guess he's going below 28, and I'm going to guess that I'll have at least a moderate amount of interest of where he ends up.
Well, before I send it over to you, Lucas, since week 10, he has had 8 points, 24 and a half, basically 12, 24 and a half. Oh, I said that 24 and a half, basically 12, 9.6, 13, 12.7, and then 28. You're right, a perfect flex option. Your 5th wide receiver on your team with a potential blow up. Everything will change with Ben Johnson, of course. Lucas, over under quickly on this one so we can get out of here with some Christmas stuff.
I'm going to be rooting for the over. I don't think he's going to quite get to that point. I'm looking at him, and wide receiver 28 is such a good spot. There's a lot of wide receivers there who are going to have like massive movement this offseason. And the thing that gives me hope that it's going to be the over is I don't see a lot of rookies coming in and inflating, like wide receiver 18 to wide receiver 24 type range where you start to see some of the sporadic first round picks land. So I'm going to still say over. If Ben Johnson leaves, I do think that that's definitely going to be a hit. He might end up settling around wide receiver 31. But like I said, I'm going to stick with over.
Okay. Over is interesting. A kind of a weaker rookie class for wide receivers right now, which is kind of where I liked that line. And again, some receivers falling out of favor for sure. Well, before we get out of here, let's talk about some holiday stuff. I want to hear your guys' favorite and least favorite things about food for the holidays. It's a hot topic. It can get a little contentious if you would. My big word of the day. Didn't think I was capable of those YouTube comment section, but here we are. Let's talk about it. Some of our favorite and least favorite. I want to start with Ryan. Let's go with least favorite.
Okay, I won't say it's my least favorite, because it's not like actively bad, and I don't have like a good suggestion to replace it, but I don't think prime rib is like that good. I feel like prime rib gets a lot of hype for like a Christmas food. Like this is the centerpiece, like Christmas dish. It's like fine. I eat prime rib once a year on Christmas. At no other time am I ever like, man, I really want to eat some prime rib. Like it's just very salty. It's kind of, it's just not my favorite. I also am not like a huge red meat person, so that might be part of where the steak is coming from too. But it's a shrug of the shoulders to me. Like I'm much more excited about like the mashed potatoes or like the deviled eggs or all the Christmas appetizers than I am to like eat the prime rib that I feel bad because it costs an ungodly amount of money every year. But I'm just, it's a shrug for me.
I'm ready for the comments. I should be like, you just aren't eating it properly prepared, bro. I'm ready for that. Lucas, let's get your least.
Least is a little tough. I don't know if there's one specific one that's least. If it were Thanksgiving, I'd say it's the
you're
scallop
allowed to hate
thing.
something.
I love a lot of things.
You love everything.
I'm going to say casseroles, just in general.
Okay.
Casseroles. I am not a casserole fan. I understand that for people who like dairy and like cheese, smothering either vegetables or some other thing in an ungodly amount of cheese makes it to where it's easier to eat, and that's fun, but that's not my lifestyle. That's not for me. Even growing up in the South all of these years, I've never become a casserole fan.
God,
I just rather eat actual vegetables and actual cheese on things that cheese is supposed to go on.
Is this
Yeah,
why I'm the
I
fat
agree.
fuck of
This
the
is a
group?
great take.
Like, is this
You're
why
a
I'm the
casserole
fat
fan?
guy? I love anything with cheese on it, man. Like, I'm not a 3-bean casserole type guy, but you can make good casseroles out there, right?
It's like
And he
wasting
said
cheese, though.
scallop
Why would you
potatoes.
not put
It's
cheese
like,
on something that's good?
cheese on everything can make it good. Like, there's few things that cheese goes on that make it bad.
I would say
That's
cheese
the
on
vast majority of my diet.
any vegetable
makes
is
it bad.
bad.
Oh, cheese and broccoli? Come on, Ryan.
Yeah, no, that's not.
Oh my
That's
god.
not good.
All right, I would go with my worst, and my worst might just be your guys' takes, but I'm gonna go with marshmallows on anything that isn't hot chocolate. I'm sorry, but marshmallows suck. They're awful. They're a giant ball of sugar, goopy texture. It's terrible. I heard for the first time in my life when Theo Graminger mentioned this in passing, people put it in potatoes. People put it in sweet potatoes.
What?
Jail.
Ew.
Immediately prison.
Oh, is this
Go
like a
to
new thing for you,
prison.
Ryan?
Sweet potatoes makes like moderately more sense, but I've never heard of that
It makes no
before.
sense. It's a dessert for one.
I still would not eat it, but it at least makes moderately more sense.
That is horrific. That is a horrific thought that we are going to put marshmallows in a dinner dish that isn't dessert. And then for the most part, I don't know what they're called, but there's these little squares that people make. I don't know what they're called. All right. They're like caramel little squares and they have nuts in them, but they put these multicolored marshmallows in it. Disgusting. Marshmallows and anything that isn't just sprinkled on top of a little bit of like hot cocoa. Okay. Gross. Stop it. Stop trying to give it to me. I'm out. S'mores, maybe. That's not really a Christmas. I don't think s'mores are like a camping thing. So that like doesn't count. But if
I would say marshmallows belong on like cookies. Like I feel like that's fine. Like a chocolate cookie or
Rice
something.
Krispie treats and hot chocolate.
That
but
works.
if you're gonna,
yeah.
Well, you need marshmallows for Rice Krispie treats, so I don't count it. That's like a baking ingredient. All right, that's
okay.
It's in the thing. That's what combines it. That's different. If you want to get into the technicality of it, if you're gonna put marshmallows on a cookie, heat the fucking thing up, put pieces of chocolate in and call it a s'more. Like, just do the extra steps. Don't just willy-nilly use it as a sprinkle topping. Like, it's not sprinkles on a cupcake. Like, what are we? I can't do it. They're gross. Stop trying to give me marshmallows. Let's move to the positive side so we can get out of here for not even for 2024 because we got a New Year's Eve show we got to get ready for next week. But let's talk about what are our favorite food traditions that we have for Christmas. I'll go back to Ryan.
Yeah, I already said my favorite. Actually, it's deviled eggs. It's just they're the best.
Eggs. Okay.
Deviled eggs are the only form in which I'll consume mayonnaise. I don't like mayonnaise. I know Will Levis would be disappointed. Not a mayo guy, but it's just something about a deviled egg. It's like just salty enough. Sprinkle like some bacon on it. Oh, it's amazing.
Are you a smoked paprika guy?
Oh yeah.
On the top.
Yeah.
Gotta have it. Gotta have the little. You like that, Lucas?
Yeah.
I have the little.
I do because you've been doing it now for 5 minutes.
Every holiday if I could.
No, deviled eggs are a great call. The comment section is going to get mad at me for interrupting you again, but I truly don't mean it in a negative light. I love deviled eggs. Aaron makes a mean deviled eggs. We have like a whole dish that's meant for them. We've got like, I don't know if you guys have these, but there's like 6 little spots for them. I don't know. She's damn good at it, and I'm pro deviled eggs. Lucas, what's your favorite?
I think my favorite really just has to be like actually like making the holiday treats, whether it's cookies or, snacks, like baking your own Chex Mix or, any sort of dessert, like actually like all getting around and doing that. And then having some sort of like Christmas movie on in the background. Like, I don't know, that's whenever we do that, that's whenever I feel like it's actually Christmas season. And so I look forward to doing that every single year. I've kind of done that a little bit with my wife before we got down here to the in-laws this year. So I think we're doing that tomorrow. I'm really excited for it, really looking forward to it. And then you get to eat all of it, which is even better. So Thomas, I think I have you beat on largest person on the show at this point, but it's mainly from the sweets, not from the cheeses.
You're also like 6'5". Like you should be bigger. How tall are you? You're like 6'3".
I'm 6'4".
Yeah.
I'm 6'4".
And you're how big?
I'm 260. So
yeah, I'm 5'8", 241, brother. All right, I am a short, round, fucking bowling ball that you could push down a hill, and it would take a tree to stop me because gravity wouldn't. Like, it's not pleasant to be my size. I have weight to lose. I have no excuse at 5'8". Okay, I'm short, stocky. I retired from pro wrestling. All right, I'm allowed to let it go. I don't have to wear tights anymore. Let me enjoy my food for a while. I'll talk about my favorite foods, and it's non-traditional Christmas foods. I'm done with turkey. If I never ate turkey again the rest of my life, I don't care if it's smoked, fried. I don't care. I'm good. I don't mind a turkey sandwich like for the next 4 days that follows Christmas, but I'm done. I'll take a ham, fried rice, mint Christmas type dish. Like it's awesome. Fried rice is good for any time of the year. Make fried rice on Christmas Day as a side dish and realize how you've been missing out in your life. The ultimate though is crab rangoon. That is the Christmas dish. That is the side. When I go to my in-laws, when I go to my wife's parents, there's always a massive dish, and it is a fight to see who can get through more crab rangoon than the others. We have festive crab rangoon t-shirts that we are known to wear on the holidays. We love this stuff. It's great. Hence why I'm 240 pounds. I look forward to it. So that's my favorite foods. Try some non-traditional Christmas foods. Okay, step outside the box. Do not fucking put marshmallows in it. And get away from the turkey and truly enjoy some wonderful Christmas foods. Don't fight on Christmas. Stay away from that table. It is a lot more fun sometimes to just enjoy the moment and not be involved in the argument. Watch some football and hang out with us. If you're watching this program, let us know in the comment section if you agree or disagree with any of this. That being said, gentlemen, we have a wonderful finals week coming up. I hope you guys crush it. I hope you do well. Ryan, I hope to see you in the finals after the Monday Night Football game.
I'll be rooting for Juwan Johnson for you. As long as it's him and not MVS, we're good.
I'll take it. I would love that for the content, to say the least. There would be 3 members of the Dynasty Points podcast in that finals as Jacob and I co-host that team. Can't thank anyone enough for this year. We love and appreciate all of you for hanging out with us. Cannot wait for the New Year's show. No idea what we're going to do for that. It'll also be pre-recorded and released because it's New Year's Eve. We love you guys, but these guys have lives and want to do stuff. I don't. So blame them for the chat not going and popping off. Let them know in the comments. Remember to check in on your loved ones. It is the holiday season. You don't know if they're tilting off their rocker about to walk into oncoming traffic or not because, McMillan couldn't score 3.5 more points. Check in on your fantasy football loved ones. Check in on your family. Christmas is a wonderful time of the year, but it can also be a very sad time of year for a lot of people. So it's important to be aware of that and reach out. That being said, remember that clear eyes and full hearts can never lose in your best days or always spent tilting, especially when Netflix is buffering. Good night, everybody.
What? Why are you shaking your head?
You're welcome.